Aloha, everybody. And of course, the plane goes by right then.
It's a sign that we all need to hop on the airplane and get to Hawaii to come and see you.
Everyone needs to come visit Maui. Right? So if you don't know who Sasha Graham is, where have you been? Not only is she an author of many amazing tarot books and tarot decks, but she just came out with a new book. That's what we're going to talk about today, and that is The Magic of Tarot. Oh, can't wait. So the thing that is kind of, there's a little bit of magic in this book anyway, because it doesn't look like it's that thick, but there's so much information in here. You cram so much in here. And it's amazing because it's like, it's concise and yet the prose flows like almost like poetry. So I love this book.
Thank you. You know, I was inspired by my favorite kind of esoteric books are the ones from the 60s and 70s, those little soft cover books that kind of get straight to the point. Like they don't mess around. You'll like get a book on astral traveling, and by the third paragraph, you know, they're telling you how to leave your body and commune with somebody else's higher self. And I'm like, yes, no beating around the bush.
Right. And you don't, it just goes right in, and just like it is, I don't even know where to start. There's so much information in here. Well, there is one thing in the beginning, in the introduction, there's something you mentioned. You mentioned like magic is like an ocean, and that's something that I've been saying for the longest time. Magic is like an ocean, and its tides are counted in centuries, not hours, like, you know, the ocean tides are. Mm-hmm. So like seeing that written in here, I'm like, oh, someone else gets it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and it's an interesting thing. Like I always talk about how we're part and parcel of nature, and so much of that is oceanic. Right. You know, our breaths being like the waves, the ocean being kind of, you know, in alignment with the moon and our bodies. Yeah. And even the way that we are built. Oh, look at that.
Hi, Kiana. Yes. And the cats are very magical too.
Yeah. So I'm glad you enjoy that, because I think it's true. And even something that I struggle with sometimes is just remembering that it's always there. It's always at our fingertips. It's what we are. It's not necessarily something that, I mean, to go and train as a witch and take classes and courses, all of that is wonderful, but we could cultivate it all on our own, because it is who we are. It's our birthright.
Right. It flows through us, right? Without even trying. The other one, the other part of the intro, like the first chapter that I really appreciate, because a lot of people don't do it, is how you break down the clairs. So for those of you who don't have the book, I love these little pages too, like the cards is like the little, like almost like cheat notes.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's helpful when we're talking about working in supernatural ways, when we're talking about psychic and intuitive things, when we're talking about the sacred imagination and walking between worlds. Language is not our friend. There are not a lot of ways to explain and express psychic and intuitive and creative work. So I always say, you know, art is very good at it. Like poetry and music is much better at expressing the ephemeral things. You know, once we start to put language to it, it starts to become kind of, it sounds ridiculous, you know. And if I was to, you know, explain to someone, well, you know, I was happened to be in the Metropolitan Museum of Art one day, and a statue started communicating with me. I would sound like a crazy person, right? And right. So these are not things that are are easily spoken about. And for that reason, I feel like a lot of people, and in my experience, a lot of my students and a lot of first-time people who come to me or my classes will have had incredibly psychic, intuitive kinds of crazy abilities, but not know how to speak to it, not know how to talk about it. So, as limiting as the clairs can be, the 5 clairs, the 9 clairs, however much you want to break it down, it begins to give language and a way to speak about the things that are often very hard to speak about.
Exactly. And I mean, it's not just like a little bit of knowledge. I mean, you really break down each clair into like not just how to do it, but the other thing about this book is I feel like I need like 5 journals for all the writing prompts you have in here. I mean, this is a book that I think I'm going to be coming back to over and over and over again, because I don't know, the way you have it written, it's not just like you giving information, it's also you helping the person figure it out for themselves.
Well, and so having a person figure out all of like tarot, what each tarot card means, having them anybody who can figure it out for yourself, because do the tarot cards mean certain things? Yes. But we're talking about reading tarot in a psychic and intuitive way. So it would be like trying to teach somebody how to taste something, right? We have to figure it out for ourselves. And it's our work when I talk about tarot, I talk about it as a practice, a daily thing, something that you go to, repeatedly. And whether that's for 4 minutes or whether it's for an hour every day, the more intensely and kind of intimately you can get to know how the cards express who you are, that is going to make you not only a better reader, but it's going to help you understand how you exist in this world as a supernatural creature. And that's what all of us are doing.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why it's chock full of writing prompts.
I mean, you could have a class just with this book by itself. I mean, and using the prompts as homework. It's like that's how in depth this book is. I also kind of vaguely remember you saying this is kind of like a bit of a companion for this.
It is. Well, there is so much more I wanted to put into the companion book for the Darkwood Tarot, but I was very limited because companion books are typically 30,000 words. And I had also been teaching shadow work a lot, and a lot of other classes actually that I had developed that I had been going around and teaching. So the Magic of Tarot was an opportunity for me to kind of collate all of this classwork that I had been doing. And it's just really great because somebody doesn't have to shell out a ton of money and come and, take a weekend retreat with me at Omega. They can kind of just pull the book, buy the book for $18.
Get a class with Sasha.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, exactly. And I'm actually in the process of creating a podcast kind of audio companion to the book. Now, there's an audio version of the Magic of Tarot. It's available on audio. And that's not what I'm making. I'm actually going to be giving like extra kind of supportive material for this book via a podcast. So hopefully it'll just give more support for the people who are using the book for classes.
That's amazing.
Deepen their practice.
Yeah, I someone recently on a tarot group asked for like recommendations for books, and I immediately thought Rachel Pollack, of course, and Mary Kay Greer, and then I immediately put this book in that list as well because it definitely deserves to be there.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is great for beginners and advanced. That's the thing that really struck me. Like I did like a power read just so I could like really understand what was going on with the book. But now I want to go back and go slowly through it because it's like, I mean, there's so much juicy yumminess in here that I want to like pull out. But
I think it's funny and odd in a way when people differentiate the beginning tarot reader as compared to like an advanced tarot reader because I attend tarot conferences, and I have for years. And in tarot conferences, I'm sitting with very high level professionals, often sitting right next to Mary Greer, or at a table with Rachel Pollack. And at the end of the day, no matter how long you've been doing tarot, and no matter how much esoteric knowledge you've cultivated, and the more the better, but we're still only arriving at a simple answer that is either one, useful to us in the present moment, or two, helping us explore these kind of big questions, these big philosophical questions. Why are we here? What does it mean to be human? So really, you can be as advanced as you want to be and throw down a 78 card spread, and yay, that's awesome, great for you. But we still come back to the basics,
Basics, exactly.
It's the same thing as eating a gourmet meal is super fun, but a piece of toast with strawberry jam and a nice cup of hot tea can be just as satisfying and nourishing at the end of the day. So yeah.
No, I love that. I mean, I've been studying tarot for 33 years, and this is just like, I love getting books that is geared to everyone, right? Because like the very basic beginner ones, sometimes they're a little too basic, and even beginners probably wouldn't get much out of them, I think. But then you get a book like this where it's like a beginner could like take this and really dive deep, but then someone who's been doing it for years goes, oh, I want to do some of these prompts in here. I mean,
well, and that's the thing, like the beginner's mindset, I think I've said this to you before, we don't come to tarot to show off what we know.
No.
Every time we sit down with the cards, we're a different person in a different space, different things are going on for us. And so the beginner's mindset is the absolute best thing that you can ever possibly do, like have as a tarot reader, because you're not there to reassert what you already know. We read cards to discover what we don't know. So yeah,
and it's true. I mean, that's true for me anyway. I always feel like every time I'm throwing down a card, it's the first time I've seen it. And I just gotta,
because if you don't leave that room, that space for possibility, that space to be surprised, then it's kind of just like, where's the magic in that? I mean, I know, like I just got finished doing a movie. Actually, I went and starred in this like amazing, crazy horror film, and it was the first time I had been hardcore acting in a long time. I was an actress back in the 90s, but it was a reminder of whether you're writing a book, whether you're acting in a scene, or whether you're doing tarot cards. You get prepared. You know what you're doing. You set a pace. But then you open up and let inspiration strike you. So
and that's totally in line with when I was teaching beginning tarot classes. That was what I always taught my students was you have to learn everything so you can forget it and just play.
Yeah, and just play. Exactly.
So I love that. And that's what I love about this book is like, there's so many little things you want to like play with in here. And like, I love how many layers you include in this. Like,
thank you. Well, isn't that what we all want to do with our cards? Just play with them, like, and if you're someone who spends a lot of time working with tarot every day, like a lot of us do, we look for new fun ways that we can play with the card. That's why I wrote 365 tarot spreads. To have as a resource when you run out of questions. Oh, there's one, and you can find one for every subject, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that I know I'm going to be going back to in this book specifically is your list of questions in the back. That's perfect for building spreads.
Yeah, and it's funny because the number of questions a person can ask is relatively finite. And so I thought it would, and we always think of tarot as being a device to get answers to our questions, but sometimes just forming a really great question can change the way that you think about something in your life. And when you change the way you're thinking about a particular situation, you'll change the answer that you arrive at. So yeah, I love a good question. Yeah, they blow the doors of possibility wide open and will break your mind out of cycles and ways of thinking so that you can cultivate new information.
Right. Well, that's one of the things I try and do for my own clients. Like if they come with me with a question, then I'm just like, let's not word it this way. Let's find another way of wording it. And by working on how they word the question, that actually opens it to them in a way that like their original question would never have opened.
Right. And then and theoretically then that opens up possibility as well. You know.
Right.
It makes space.
And by expanding that vision, then they can break out of whatever like little hole they were stuck in.
Exactly. Hopefully.
Cross our fingers, right?
It's funny though. I'm often struck by, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but I always felt, especially back when I had a regular tarot reading practice. I don't have a private reading practice. I don't read at parties anymore. But back when I did, I would always hold myself kind of, I would be like, well, okay, if people are coming to me for answers and guidance, I better be the first one,
right?
Getting answers, cultivating answers, and taking guidance from the cards. And so it's an interesting thing. I will say it has been an interesting journey writing about magic and knowing how real it is. But after all of these books and after all of the experiences that I've had, to still find myself sometimes questioning, right? Is it real? Is what I'm saying is what I've discovered,
right?
Something that I can apply for because often I forget. I know that I think I put the 7 sacred cornerstones of constant magic, which was a really wonderful thing that I developed into coursework. And it was something that I had been actually practicing for many years in my life. And sometimes I forget. Like sometimes I have to go back into the books for myself.
Well, and I think that's important. If you get to the point where you feel like you don't need the books anymore, then I don't know. That always makes me hesitate, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, just the way that you've been able to like peel back so many layers in here, and also like how to make rituals. That's just amazing. And then bringing magic to life, right? I mean, I'm at a loss for words because this book is one of those things that's like you said, beyond words.
Yeah. That is why doing things like cultivating ritual, which it's funny because Llewellyn will also often talk to me about, they'll be like, well, you're one of the only people out there who's like talking a lot about magic in the cards. But for me, like, and I feel like for everybody, whether they recognize it or not, tarot is pure magic. Like it is such a magical tool. And I feel like even just pulling a simple card a day unleashes an unbelievable amount of magic because it's instant mindfulness. One of the beautiful things about a tarot practice is it grounds you in the moment. Like Eckhart Tolle, right, has built his entire, Buddhism. It's all on Tantra. It's all about being present, cultivating alignment with the present moment. And nothing does that like a deck of tarot cards. When you clear your mind, when you ask a question and you start shuffling. And then if you bring in all of those other beautiful sensual aspects to tarot card reading, incense, candles, colors, and cloths. And we know because we're tarot readers are incredibly sensual creatures. We're incredibly tactile in how we collect our decks, how we present our decks. All of those things root us into the moment and they prepare our body for an opening so that we receive information and understanding. And that's like kind of the point of being alive, right? Or it's one of the pleasures of being alive. And
one of the pleasures, true.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that being that physical thing, it brings me into this part that I was going to talk about here is how you're talking about bringing tarot into your yoga practice and how you connected each of the major arcana to a specific movement, and then that way you could like create your practice by drawing the major. That is just like, wow.
well, what's really fascinating too is that, you know, the archetypes of tarot hold, and the archetypes or the asanas of yoga are very much the same thing. So you could say, if you're using the Empress to kind of invoke that creative part of yourself, you can also use a mountain pose to access the energy of a mountain, right? Or cobra to access the energy, reptilian, you know, or snake-like energy. So the archetypes of yoga can be used in exactly the same way as the archetypes of tarot. And what's great about kind of tarot and yoga together, and I love to incorporate them, is pulling a card before your practice, you know, and laying it at the top of your mat. And so just letting that inform you, or I love to put the 4 aces out and kind of open the 4 corners, call to the elements before a yoga practice. And some crazy things have happened too. One day I had a big day of writing ahead of me, and I pulled out the court cards, the sword court cards, and I laid, you know, the king and the queen and the page and the knight. I put them around my yoga mat, but it was too intense. What that opened up for me that day was so intense. So just be wary when you're pulling out an entire family of court cards and accessing all of their energy at once, because it was a really swordsy day, to say the least. But, you know, your mistakes will teach you as much as your successes.
Right.
Magic.
All lessons, right? At the end of the day. So if anyone has any questions for Sasha about the book, throw it in chat and I will put it up. I realized I never said hello to anybody, so you know, I was getting enthralled with you. Ange, hello Ange. Backyard Naturalist Tarot, hello. Jamie, aloha. Beth, Asphasia Rising. Hello, Gerald Tarot Stash. Marina and Tony. And Jacob and Rachel. Christina, aloha. Andy, aloha. Hello, AAC, welcome. I think I'm near the bottom. Yes. Aloha to everyone and everyone who's lurking and anyone who is watching this later. Tony just said that the 365 Spreads book is definitely going on my birthday list next month.
Yeah.
It's a great book. It really is. I love the spreads in there.
It was so much fun to write. It was one of those things where when I came up with the idea for it, I was like, oh, somebody had to have already written a spread for every day of the year. And when I discovered no one had, I was just gobsmacked. And I was like, oh my God. That one was really, really fun to write because I wanted to, and as you know, because you have it, I also equate every spread to something esoteric, mysterious, or important that happened on that particular day in history. So yeah.
And it's so fun. What's today's spread?
It's Aleister Crowley's birthday. There's an Aleister Crowley spread. Oh, Star Wars came out today. Oh, we're actually getting close to this. I think May 5th, right, is the day that Star Wars was released.
May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you, yeah. And so I have a Star Wars spread on that day.
And then Cinco de Mayo, and then Revenge of the 6th. Oh my goodness. Oh, Beth says, I did that too. I connected one major arcana to an asana. I'm interested to see what Sasha's connections are.
Yeah, it's so much fun to do. And it's amazing how it's so then in tandem, right? You're working both the yoga and the tarot together, which is really super fun. Yeah. Oh, I see a question.
Tony says, spreads are my least favorite thing to create. So anyone who creates them, I bow to thee.
Oh, that's so funny. I could make tarot spreads all day long.
I know. I love making spreads.
Yeah. When I used to read for private clients, I would make spreads on the spot out of their questions, and we would come up with the shapes and all of that stuff.
All of that.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the question. My chat is acting weird.
It is. I see a question there. It says somebody.
Yes. That's Beth, Aphasia Raising. I would like to get a sneak peek of some of the yoga correspondences. Just a few, please.
Yeah. So, okay. So one of my favorite poses. So what I did was I tried to connect kind of obviously the similar correlations. So for something like the Empress card, which is number 3, and she's, of course, aligned with creativity, I aligned her with the Trikonasana triangle pose. Because obviously a triangle is 3-pointed, and triangles signify creativity. But there's also in triangle pose this incredible heart opening, right? So it's kind of, and the Empress is all heart and passion and love. So the triangle pose goes with the Empress. I think I put the Emperor card, I believe, was with plank pose, right? Very strong. I think I did, the Devil card. I did the eagle pose, that, the arm balance, because that's very much like the devil. It's not only is crow pose a really hard pose to master. So theoretically, it's got all of that devil stuff in it, but also you're kind of crouching up above, like, your hands, kind of like the Rider-Waite-Smith Devil card. He's perching on that, on his, above the 2 bars.
Right.
Yeah. So those are some of the correlations. Yeah. Oh, I love the correlation between plow pose and the Hermit card. In plow, your legs are up and over, and it's like your head is right at your chest. It's a very intimate pose, so I like the correlation of Hermit and plow together, which is really, the Hermit is really about understanding how it is that you work in the material world, the invisible parts of you. So I thought that worked well.
I love the correlation between the star and the lotus position.
Oh, the star and lotus, right? Isn't it?
Right? It's so perfect.
It's perfect. And it's not, anybody could create, they could create, and you could all create your own correspondences with yoga and tarot. Mine are just suggestions, things that made sense to me. Yeah. Obviously corpse pose, right, with death, which is really, really fascinating when you think about it, because the death card in tarot really represents the point at which the occultist understands the nature of the material world and is resurrected. Right. So since it was just Easter, right, we can use the metaphor of, the resurrection as well. And you could even look on the death card in the Rider-Waite-Smith, and it looks like there's a little cave, and you see the sun rising between the towers, which is symbolic of resurrection. But it's also a metaphor for the occultist who's figured out via the tree of life how manifestation occurs on earth. So the death card is the point at which the occultist turns around and begins his or her ascent up the tree of life in the invisible world to greet divinity on their own terms. And it's also, obviously, death is heavily correlated in any initiation ritual, where you go through that metaphorical death. When the initiation is over, you see the world with a new set of eyes. So when I realized that at the end of every yoga practice, where you literally have been through a quote unquote ordeal, and the whole point of yoga, right, is to, it's not to just look hot in your outfit, right, in your yoga outfit, to like build muscle. The whole point of yoga originally was to prepare the body for meditation, and so how perfect, how ideal is Shavasana correlated with the death card, because literally that's what we feel like. And that's what how many of us have had trippy experiences in corpse pose, right? Otherworldly experiences at the end of a really good yoga practice. So yeah, that those correlate very well.
Yes, Tony, yoga is definitely energetic. It's definitely an energy system. If you learn about it, it's thousands of years old, and it's so much more than what the West has made of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's really interesting because if you look at the correlation between East and West, so much of Western esotericism was, sprang from the Eastern mysteries, sprang from, what the occultists were going over and learning from in the East. And when I went to Tibet 3 years ago. And it was fascinating to see how much Tibetan Buddhism is actually used the way that like my friends and I use tarot, in other words, like the Bodhisattvas, that those meditations are about embodying that particular god or goddess to imbue yourself with their qualities of compassion, of love. And that's so often the magic that I talk about with tarot is embodying the cards, kind of taking them like medicine so that we can all be in the world card as much as possible.
Well, I love how you go into like stepping through the frame of the card into the scene. So, I do a lot of path working myself. So Rachel asks, what is your go-to spread?
My go-to spread? Well, that's a great question. It depends on kind of the situation at hand. I do a lot of as of late, I'm doing a lot of one card pulls because I'm kind of using it. I'm in a place where I'm testing the waters energetically of what's going on around me. So I will ask a question and pull a single card to take the temperature to see if I'm in alignment with a particular thing, because I'm really busy right now with a lot of different projects. So I need to make sure I'm making the right decisions and not overextending myself. That being said, when I'm really like, I need like practical advice, one of my favorite spreads, and it's in this book and it's probably in all my books, and I love this spread. It was created by Rachel Pollack's business partner, Zoe, and it's called the Should and Shouldn't Do spread. So it's a 3-card spread, like a triangle, and your situation is up at the top. So, so you pull this card and say, maybe your question is, should I pursue this job? So the top card is kind of like what the situation is. And then the bottom 1 card is what you should do, and the other card is what you shouldn't do. And I love that. I just love a should, shouldn't do spread.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, I don't know what I should do. I don't trust myself to make a decision. So that's what I do.
This or should I do that? Well, and I love how you actually created a yoga asana spread.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. There's tons of spreads in here too.
I
tips on making your own.
Tips on what?
Making your own spreads.
That's right. That's right. Because I think the shape of a spread helps work the magic of a spread,
Mm-hmm. And then there's also the master list of questions in the back here. Mm-hmm. And you said this is the same list that you used to write this book. Correct?
Yeah, to write 365 tarot spreads. Yeah, because it's one of the interesting things as a reader. And even as someone who practices tarot on a regular basis for a couple of years, you find yourself, you find out what your cycles and your patterns are very quickly when you're pulling cards for yourself every day. When you're reading for people en masse, you also recognize relatively soon that most of us are all pretty much the same. We all have the same questions. We come back to the same things over and over again. It tends to be, I think, about, every love is the number one thing. Security, life path. People are really pretty simple when it comes down to what our wants and needs are. And that's why astrology columns work. And that's why, Shakespeare wrote like the 14 or 28, basic plays, that every piece of literature is basically a reiteration of that thing. And even music, right? Was it the Axis of Awesome who were like, I think they did that video that they proved that like every song is really just 4 chords kind of like redone. So it's this, I think tarot is a beautiful way and a simple way to dive into the complexity of what it means to be human. Because on one hand, were very simple. The things that we should remember, the things that we need to make ourselves happy or to help ourselves are fairly simple things. Yet there's so much complexity therein. And so I think that tarot is just a perfect way to dive into that.
So I'm going to have to keep muting myself because they're using a chainsaw right outside my house.
Oh, no.
This is like the third week in a row of them doing this.
Oh, my God.
But here's a question from Tony. Cheeky question. Is there a book to go with the haunted house deck? I love that deck.
So there is a teeny tiny little white book that came with Tarot of the Haunted House. But unfortunately, since Lo Scarabeo did not release that deck as a kit, like the Darkwood Tarot, which had like a nice chunky book that went along with it, there is no book to go with the Tarot of the Haunted House. However, you are not the first person. People keep asking me for a book for Tarot of the Haunted House. So instead of a book, because I don't have the time to write a book, I'm going to be releasing a series of videos that's going to explain the deck. It's going to explain how you can go deeper with the cards, what the inspiration for the cards are. So that should be out by the end of summer. So just, I don't know, subscribe to my website because or stay tuned to me somewhere on social media so you can see when those videos come out. And they'll just be on YouTube so you can watch them for free. Oh, you have the little white book. I know it's so simple, it's so small, right? What I had planned to do, and I haven't done it yet, was actually to kind of write a novel to go along with the book. I wanted to tell the full story and what she uncovers inside of the haunted mansion. So there's more to come around Tarot of the Haunted House and more spooky things coming down the pipeline for me as well. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
I'm getting little moments of silence, but I'm getting the chainsaw. Oh, there it goes again.
Oh, no, I can't hear the chainsaw at all.
You can't hear it? Okay.
Not
well, I'll
at
try
all.
and keep going.
I don't know.
It's like really loud for me. But I have
that's-
the door. That's what I jumped up to do, was close the doors and windows. Oh, there they go.
Oh my gosh,
It's
never
so loud.
It never fails. Oh, somebody said awesome about a novel with the deck. Yes. Thank you.
Yes, that would be awesome. A novel and the deck. Yes.
It would be very cool. Let's see, Sasha. Let's see. Were there any cards that were particularly challenging? Oh, on the Darkwood Tarot or the Haunted House, or any that I am particularly proud of? Rachel, that's a really
wonderful question.
Great question. You know what's hard? What actually is a challenge for me when I'm creating decks, and it happened again. So I have a new deck coming out called the Tarot of the Witch's Garden, and that's going to be out in the summer of next year with Llewellyn. It'll be a big kit with a big chunky book. I often have a hard time with the conceptualizing the latter part of wands for a number of reasons. So when I talk about that, I'm talking about like the 7, 8, and I actually take an issue. I always have a problem with the 10 of wands because in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, it's just so exhausting and like it just seems so heavy. And I find wands to be really exhilarating. And so I think that it's very exciting to be at the end of a creative and inspired process. So I always, and it's hard for some reason, it's very hard. I don't know. I do struggle with the end of the wands when figuring out how that would fit into the context of a story. But cards that I'm really pleased with, there's so many cards in the Darkwood Tarot that working with Abigail Larson, the artist for the Darkwood Tarot, was unbelievable. In any creative process, you hope that they take your vision and kind of add even more magic to it. And it was crazy with her from the get-go. I got her, she got me. And so the Hermit, that's the Hermit on the cover of the box. I am so proud of that card. I love the Hermit. To me, if you can figure out your hermit self, which is essentially what you've been talking about with the whole book, A Magic of Tarot, it's about figuring out how you your life, your experience in the world. It's like you're the Indiana Jones of your experience. And that's the Hermit card, right? That's leaving the teachers behind. That's letting yourself and your experience be your teacher, cultivating your own answers. So I was so pleased with that. I love the Lover's card in the dark wood, which is really sex magic, which of course is the Lover's card. It's the reason, it's what compels us to get up and do anything in the world. You know, I think the Lover's card is so key. So I love that card. In Tarot of the Haunted House, I love the Three of Cups, which I took inspiration from my favorite horror movie, The Legacy. I was haunted. There's a scene in this movie that came out in the 70s. It's a haunted house movie with Catherine Ross and Sam Neill. And there's a particular scene where this like German model who's staying in the house goes swimming. And she's like fabulously 70s. She's so pretty. She looks like a Breck hair model. And she dives into the indoor swimming pool, and the ghost in the house, or the energy in the house, kind of freezes the top of the water so she can't come up. Oh, I'm so scared when I start to, and it's like being frozen. It's like diving under like water, and you can't escape. And so I thought it would be interesting with the Three of Cups, that idea of being haunted by that happiness that the Three of Cups traditionally represents, that you can't get to it, right? That you're blocked from it. And that's how we feel like when we fall into depression, right? A lot of times being depressed is really being cut off from emotion. It's not that you're sad all the time, although it can be, but it can be this lack of being able to access those good feelings. So I thought Mirko Federici, who's the artist for the Haunted House Tarot, did such a beautiful job in that card. So I love that card. And I love the Two of Wands in the Haunted House, which is the Ouija board and the two candles. I thought that was brilliant. And so, yeah. Thank you. That's such a great question. I'll stop, because I'll just keep going on for another 2 hours.
I'm not opposed to that. So the Witch's Garden, I think you said was going to be a sequel to this.
Well, you know, it's so funny. So I'm at the end of the process of Witch's Garden. I think we're waiting for the artist to come back with just a few more colored cards. So I'm literally this week finishing the book. I, in my mind's eye, very much wanted it to be kind of the light side of the Darkwood Tarot, because the Darkwood was so. And as I'm finishing this, I'm realizing that Tarot of the Witch's Garden is just another animal entirely. And it is a beautiful watercolor deck, which is very dark in certain parts. Wait till you see, oh my God, wait till you see the 5 of Swords in this particular deck. I don't think I've ever seen it illustrated so beautifully and quite so cool. And if anybody who's familiar with the 5 of Swords in Darkwood Tarot, it's a woman throwing swords into another woman's back. Well, in Tarot of the Witch's Garden, we have 3 figures, and we have an older woman who is being atrocious to a younger female, and then the sort of even younger child is like looking on, and so I love the darkness in that card. But no, Tarot of the Witch's Garden is very soft. It's just different. It has a completely different flavor. So I don't think that I can say it's not a continuation.
Not a continuation anymore. It became its own.
It became its own thing, but it's very much about magic and nature. There's so much that's full of animals and fairies and gnomes and elemental creatures and vegetables and flowers. It's a very multicultural deck. It's a very gender fluid deck. I think all of my knights are kind of females, and the pages kind of look like very gender fluid, sort of more on the boy scale. There's some smoke show kings, and yeah, it's just, you'll see when it comes out next year, but it's its own little universe.
Oh, sounds lovely. I can't wait. Let me just make sure I can. Oh, okay. So we have a few people sharing links. So thank you, Jamie, for Sasha's direct website. And thank you, Tony, for sharing Sasha's YouTube.
Oh, thank you.
I believe I put that in the description as well.
Yeah.
And then in order to get the book, Tony also put the Llewellyn link, which I believe is also in the description.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My
That's
chat
super
is
awesome.
acting weird. I can't see the last chat here.
I didn't even know there was a chat going on in the beginning because I had it. It was like on like a private.
Oh, on the top part there was the private chat or whatever.
Yeah. So I don't know about you guys, and this would be like just a fun question to put out in the chat. But I know, is anybody haunted by a particular tarot card right now? And you guys know what I'm talking about when I say like a card that keeps coming up for you. I'm just curious to see what's haunting you guys, or even you.
I love that because I always call them the stalker cards.
The stalker cards. Are you being stalked by anything right now?
There's always something that's stalking me. What is it right now? I keep getting Page of Swords quite often lately.
Ooh.
I've been getting Eight of Cups quite a bit. What else have I gotten lately? Well, it's like once the lesson resolves itself, then the stalkers kind of go away.
Right, exactly.
Like once I understand why they're there, they stop showing up.
That's right. So. Somebody is asking, "What's my favorite section of the book?"
Yes.
To write, or is the question like, "What's my favorite section?" Like, what was most enjoyable for me as a writer, or what do I think is most useful as a reader?
Because that could be broken in different ways. Like, what was your favorite part as a writer?
So when I discovered the correlation between tarot and fairy tales, I thought that was pretty mind-blowing. So I have a section, I think it's right after the shadow work, about how tarot correlates to fairy tales. And it's kind of amazing because it turns out there's all of these similarities. Like fairy tales are very, first of all, they take place in imaginary worlds. And that's exactly what a tarot card, no matter what genre tarot is. Yeah. The role of numbers, the role of challenges, the life or death situation. So I thought it was really interesting when I learned that. As far as what's I think the most helpful, I have to say, and I was just reminded of this just yesterday, the shadow work. The shadow work, which is really about kind of owning up to your experience of the world and being willing to look at the not so nice parts of yourself in order to understand what's really driving you. So I think the shadow work is amazing. And I loved the introduction too. I loved writing about how tarot was always in my, it's a funny thing, like when you meet someone and you fall in love, it's almost like they were always there. Like tarot was always there. And I love being able to put my experience, my very sensual experience and my very hardcore experience of my childhood. A lot of the stuff like I put in there, I mean, all that stuff was true, and I think all of us, when we look at if we're incredibly psychic, incredibly intuitive, or just those of us who really know how to read a room, a lot of that can stem from the experiences of being a kid, of trauma, of being around people who are very devil-like. And like, if you think about, when you look at the devil card and you think about a person that scared you when you were a little kid, right? That's really helpful in understand. And so I think that a lot of our experiences, the experiences of our page self, not only is that the place that we want to get back in touch with, and if we can maintain a constant communication with that part of ourselves, it will be a tremendous benefit to us as we age. Because I think that, and I just turned 51, or no, I'm going to be 52 this year. And so as I get older and as I watch my friends getting older, and I see who kind of continues to evolve and stay fresh and kind of interested in life, and I watch some people that I know, or older people that I know, who seem to have, gotten stuck in habits and routines. Like tarot will help us break out of that. And I think I'm also
patterns.
Yeah, patterns. So it was so I go back again and again and again, kind of to my childhood and to the way that I experienced the world, because I think we knew everything when we were young. I think Taylor Swift has that. She has that lyric in a song. You know, we knew everything when we were young, but we did. You know, and that's where we're destined to go back to anyway. So I feel like the quicker we get back there, the better.
Awesome. Oh, hello, Richie. I think I saw Chris popping earlier. Yes, there he is. Aloha, Chris. Look at those gorgeous faces.
Hello, elemental cartomancy. Hello.
Yes, this is our lovely Scotsman who does amazing readings.
Oh, from Scotland?
Mm-hmm. Chris Kelly McFadden.
That's fabulous.
I'm not seeing any more questions. If you do have one more question, throw it in. Otherwise, we could end a little early. What other... I know you're getting the Witch's Garden coming out soon, but do you have any other books or decks coming after that?
I do. So I am I'm the official Rider-Waite-Smith writer for Los Carabeo. So they have been releasing a series of Rider-Waite-Smith decks. I think so there's a circular tarot. So I'm like the writer for all of those books. Right. They were like, well, Sasha, you wrote the complete book of Rider-Waite-Smith, so we want you to be our Rider-Waite-Smith writer. So there's a whole deck that's going to be out this summer called The Dark Side of Tarot, which is an interesting, like, kind of black and white sketch and so that will be out this summer. So that's new. Then I've got Tarot of the Witch's Garden next summer, and then more things that I can't talk about yet, but that are coming down the pipe. Are cool and exciting. And I'm going to be teaching and traveling a lot, so I don't know where everybody's located, but I'll be in Dallas next month at the TIDE, the International Divination Festival in Dallas that Michelle Welch and Roger Welch are putting on from Soultopia. I just was asked to teach at Omega this summer, so I will be teaching tarot and yoga with Allison DeNicola at the Omega Institute at the end of August. And we also teach Apollo, the same course, every February. That's in the Berkshires of Massachusetts. I'm going to be doing some classes with the Museum of Morbid Anatomy this fall. Those will be online, so anybody can take them. I'm going to be doing live classes, shadow work classes in New Jersey. And I think that I'm going to actually be teaching a retreat in Ibiza this November with a psychic channeler named Heather Carlucci, who's awesome. Keep your eyes peeled for that. For anybody who's in the New York City area, I host 2 monthly events out in Brooklyn. One is usually the last Tuesday of every month, and that's psychic, Spirited Away Psychic and Paranormal event where I bring together all my psychics and tarot card reader friends, and there's crystal classes and spirit circles, pretty much anything you can imagine there. And then the first Tuesday of every month, I do Ghost Stories by the Fire, which is a spooky crowd. It's like a spooky story share, and it's crowdsourced. So I'm excited. I always have an opening and a closing storyteller. And so I've got the woman who runs Bros of the Dead. She runs a tour company here in Manhattan she does spooky tours. And I have a lot of horror authors that come and share stories. So that's super fun. That's twice a month. And yes, and I have a movie coming out in the next year called Trivial, where that's not tarot at all, but
it's so exciting.
If you like horror movies and you like revenge torture films and you want to see me kill some people, it's a fun movie.
Sasha, the Scream Queen.
That is right. Oh my God. And speaking of Scream Queen full circle, I don't know if there's any other 80s children here, but recently they're re-releasing a bunch of the movies I did back in the 90s. And so we're doing all these DVD extras. If you look on my Instagram, you will see this. I literally freaked out Catherine Mary Stewart, who's the actress from Night of the Comet, The Last Starfighter, all of these like amazing, like I wanted to be her in Night of the Comet so bad. She literally came to my house and was she was the director of photography on one of the DVD extras that I did. I was just like, how is this you in my life? I can't. It was so exciting. So.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. So if anybody wants information on anything, if you sign up for my newsletter on my website, I'm not like a crazy marketing queen. I only send out a newsletter when I have things that you might be interested in. So maybe once a month. So I won't spam you or anything, but it's a good way to stay in touch.
Yeah. Well, and I always appreciate getting your emails because it's always something informational too.
Yeah, trying to make it fun. Wait, what does that say? Where's Ben of Wands? He loves horror. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I love horror. I think I said totally terrible. Oh, that's awesome.
My chat seems to be broken on StreamYard. Good thing I'm trying to keep up on my phone, otherwise I'd be missing stuff.
Oh no. Oh, now I'm curious. What are some of your favorite horror movies of all time? Oh, I love that question. One of my cozy. I find horror films cozy. It's like it's which is kind of odd, right? But one of my like coziest movies is The Others with Nicole Kidman. Love that.
That's such a good one.
Love it so much. One of my cozy movies from the 80s, I actually just watched it recently, is Happy Birthday to Me with Melissa Sue Anderson from Little House on the Prairie. It was like a great horror movie. I love April Fool's Day, one of my favorite horror movies. So I like the fun. Oh, and Lost Boys, if that counts. Oh my God, Lost Boys. I actually just got a Lost Boys poster down in the Village.
Lost Boys was filmed in my hometown.
Oh, that's right, because you're from Santa Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
I went there. We went up highways at Highway 1 that goes up the coast. When we went on our Highway 1 trip, that was like, I was so excited to go to that boardwalk. And like,
I used to walk across that, the train bridge. I used to walk across that bridge to get to the boardwalk every weekend when I was in junior high because we lived on the other side of the bridge. So I just walked across that bridge all the time. And seeing that movie is like, it's a flashback to the pre-1989 earthquake, which pretty much destroyed Santa Cruz.
Oh.
So like that comic book store they go into, that was the comic book store I grew up with.
Really?
It doesn't exist anymore because it got destroyed by the earthquake. And I was never on the boardwalk, which is the funny thing. That's movie magic for you.
So interesting. That's so interesting. I didn't know that an earthquake destroyed all that stuff.
Downtown Santa Cruz got pretty much obliterated by the 89 earthquake. It's because everyone focused more on the Bay Area where the bridge collapsed.
Right. That makes sense.
I mean, that was horrible too, but like the entire downtown Santa Cruz just toppled over and like tons of people died. So,
yeah.
It looked like a war zone when we went down there, and we didn't have power in Santa Cruz for weeks.
It's so terrifying to be in a disaster zone. It's so stressful. It's so stressful. Oh my God.
Quiet is unreal too. You know.
And just the sense of the world not being as safe as you thought it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Did they shot another one of the, I think the movie didn't they shoot that in Santa Cruz?
I think so.
Yeah.
They did quite a few in Santa Cruz. And now apparently they're filming a lot more on Maui. So.
Really?
Yeah, there's like a whole little like mini Hollywood kind of forming on Maui.
Maybe the horror is following you. Maybe it's
who knows? So, but it's funny though because when I see Lost Boys, like half the extras in the background were people I grew up with and knew.
Really?
So, yeah.
Do you remember them shooting in the town when they were there?
Oh yeah, and I remember people like almost everyone went to like try and become an extra, but only certain people got picked. And I remember this guy from my high school got picked, the one with the mohawk.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, he was someone I went to high school with. I knew him, and like there's still a painting of him with his mohawk in downtown Santa Cruz. There's like this little mini garden with like a bunch of community members, and one of them was him with his mohawk. So, yeah,
it's
just
good.
Yeah, it's home.
There's just every single frame of that movie is perfect. Every single frame. And it's so fun to like think of like who would you pick? Like Kiefer Sutherland or Jason Patrick. Right? Like who would you pick?
Patrick, of course.
Yeah. I got to meet them both a few like in the early, it was either the late 80s or the early 90s, and they were both really, really nice. But Jason Patrick, he was so dreamily kind and like just so gorgeous.
Dreamboat.
So gorgeous. Kiefer definitely had more of an element of danger about him, like bad boy.
Right. Well, I mean, he kept going. His trajectory kept going, and Jason Patrick kind of just went back to being an earlier guy.
Yeah. Oh, so gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
So gorgeous. We should make a Lost Boy tarot. I'm sure something of that like already exists.
Oh yeah, Lost Boy tarot. Oh, that would be amazing.
Because we could do the suits with the 4 of them, right? The suits could be Marco and Kiefer and right, Lick, right, Antoinette. I mean, Jason Patrick popsicle every day of the.
And there goes the chainsaw again.
All right. Well, I guess
like weeks of this chainsaw thing is getting beyond my nerves. I need to like run away a little bit.
We should take it as a sign. We should probably. I have to go back to writing my companion book anyway.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Sasha. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks everybody for your awesome questions. That was great. They were great.
And if you don't have it yet, trust me, you'll love this book. There's so much in there. It's just like, it's hard to even put into words. So thank you. And thanks everyone for being here. Until next time, aloha.